Welcome to Football Game Plan's FCS Kickoff, presented by the Connecticut School of Broadcasting. I'm Emory Hunt, the czar of the playbook, and the 2017 college football season is rapidly approaching, and we are here to get you ready for the season as we preview the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. Here's a look at what we have in store for you guys in this season's preview. We'll take a look at some of the incoming talent in our recruiting roundup. We'll hand out some superlatives, including our preseason all-conference team in our conference preseason awards segment. And we will also take an early look at some of the 2018 NFL draft prospects that you want to keep an eye on this season. But first, let's kick things off by taking you around the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference as we go into our 4-minute offense. The Howard Bison have a new head coach for 2017 in Mike London, and London was the associate head coach defensive line coach at the University of Maryland last season. He also had successful stints at the University of Virginia, where he won the ACC Coach of the Year award, and Richmond, where he led the Spiders to the 2008 FCS National Championship. Now, the Bison program is considered by many to be a sleeping giant in the FCS, and with London's track record of success in recruitment and in development, it looks to be the perfect match to get the Bison stampeding in the right direction. We saw some excellent quarterback play last year in the MEAC with Norfolk State's Greg Hankerson and North Carolina Central's Malcolm Bell. This year, both programs will be breaking in new QBs, along with Morgan State, who landed one of the top quarterback transfers in the FCS in Elijah Staley. Now, the 6'7" Staley was a Mississippi State Bulldog before transferring last season to Tyler Junior College and expected to be the starter September 2nd against Towson University. The quarterback play in the MEAC has gotten significantly better over the last 4 seasons, and despite some programs breaking in some new ones, 2017 shouldn't be any different. Savannah State announced that it will be leaving the MEAC and dropping down to Division II in 2019. In my opinion, this is unfortunate because I think the Tigers, with second-year head coach Eric Rayburn, are on the cusp of turning their program around in 1AA or FCS, However, I do understand it from a financial perspective. We saw Winston-Salem State do the same thing a few years ago, leaving the MEAC and dropping down to the CIAA. Now, the Tigers were a Division II program from 1981 to 2005, so they'll be moving back to familiar territory. The Air Force Reserve Celebration Bowl will be in its 3rd year in 2017. The annual bowl game that pits the MEAC champion against the SWAC champion in Atlanta is tied up at 1 apiece, with North Carolina A&T winning the inaugural game in 2015 and Grambling State of the SWAC winning last season. Both games were exciting start to finish and have garnered a lot of interest in both conferences. Speaking to some MEAC coaches over the spring, and they've noticed an increase in interest from recruits because of that bowl game. Now, this year expect 6 teams from the MEAC to have a legit shot at making it to the ATL in December. In college football, you're only as good as your ability to recruit and develop the players that you bring into your program. And this past signing day, there was no shortage of future impact players added to the conference. So let's hit the recruiting trail to see how well these teams recruited this past offseason. Bethune-Cookman lands a really good linebacker prospect in Devin James out of Port St. Lucie, Florida, Treasure Coast High School. James has really good awareness on both ends of defense and does a great job of finding the football. He's 6'2", 235, and has a great chance to find his way on the field early as a freshman. The Hornets of Delaware State wanted to get stronger along the line of scrimmage, and bringing in Matthew Dirks of Salisbury School in Connecticut gives this offensive line a player that's capable of playing both tackle and guard. Dirks is a finisher and has really good footwork for a 6'4", 325-pound player. Defense was a big focus for the Hampton Pirates, and I'm a big fan of defensive tackle Ian Newton from Cocoa, Florida. Newton has great point of attack strength and shows above average quickness off the ball. He's one of 9 defensive players the Pirates added on signing day. Mike London's first class with the Howard Bison looks to be a great one. A lot of the talk was about quarterback Kalen Newton, who played in the spring. That's Cam Newton's younger brother. But I like what they did up front along the offensive line with Brendan Johnson out of Good Counsel High School. I was on the broadcast this year for Johnson's game against Gonzaga Prep, and a lot of the success running the football that day came right down the middle of that offensive line. Johnson is technically sound and has really good athleticism. Head coach Fred Farrier cast his recruiting net real wide with this signing class, and he was able to pull an excellent prospect out of Lithonia, Georgia, and Malachi Jenkins. Jenkins is a combo guy that can play either safety spot while also being able to hold his own in the slot. He's a very good tackler in space and has the instincts that you want on the back end. This was an impressive haul for Norfolk State's head coach Latrell Scott. Wide receiver Isaiah Winstead of Richmond, Virginia, has a chance to be special. The 6'3", 205-pound wideout has outstanding hand-eye coordination and shows the ability to contort his body to make the tough catch. Winstead is never surprised or shocked when the ball is coming his way and is able to show the razor-sharp focus to make the contested catch look easy. North Carolina A&T lost some great talent along the defensive line. Karfa Kaba from Laurinburg, North Carolina, has the skills to be an impact freshman for head coach Rod Broadway. Kaba is 6'4", 250 and does a great job using his hands to find the ball carrier. You can see the quick twitch and coming off the edge, and in 3 years from now, we'll be talking about him as the next great edge rusher coming from the MEAC. Last year's MEAC champion, the North Carolina Central Eagles, lost a great quarterback in Malcolm Bell to graduation. Head coach Jerry Mack doesn't rebuild, he restocks talent. Quarterback Chauncey Caldwell is a local prospect out of Durham's Mallard Creek High School that has a lot of the same skills as Bell. The 6'3", 225-pound quarterback is a bigger version that has the ability to attack every quadrant of the field with his arm and is equally as dangerous with his legs. So it'll be interesting to see how quickly he's able to adapt to the college game, and the sky's the limit for Caldwell as a collegian. Head coach Eric Rayburn needed to replenish some of the firepower at the second level of his defense, and linebacker Josh Thomas from Carrollton, Georgia, has a lot of the same elements that the departed Marcus Smith brought to the table. Thomas is an outside backer with the speed and athleticism to make plays sideline to sideline, and I'm a big fan of how his eyes and feet are steadily in sync, which allows him to be disruptive versus the run and also in the pass defense department. What I know about head coach Buddy Pugh of South Carolina State is that he will keep talent along the line of scrimmage. His defenses will always play tough, and he will have a very good running back at all times. Farika Greer has the potential to see some time as a true freshman. The 5'11", 225-pound tailback has the power to run through arm tackles and shows above-average ability catching the football out of the backfield. He's the type of back that gets stronger with each and every carry, and one who definitely has a bright future ahead of him.
I think that the main reason to choose HBCU is for the family atmosphere. The guys are going to get the core values that their parents taught them, that their family members tried to raise them. You'll have a close-knit atmosphere. You'll actually have guys that care about you as a person. So I think that's the main reason for choosing the HBCU.
This conference is filled with talented players across the board, and what better way to illustrate that than to unveil our 2017 preseason all-conference team. Starting with the offensive side of the ball, and running back Anthony Filial of Howard bounced back nicely in 2016 after missing all of the 2015 season. Filial ran for over 1,200 yards last year, averaging 5.5 yards a carry. And if you go back to his freshman season in 2013, the 6'1", 205-pounder ran for 722 yards and scored 15 rushing touchdowns. If he can put together back-to-back seasons like he did last year and stay healthy, which is key, the Bison could make significant strides in the MEAC standings. Offensive lineman Brandon Parker of North Carolina A&T makes the Aggie offensive line one of the strongest in the conference and has been one of the most consistent performers his entire career. I'm really impressed with the wide receivers on this list. Kyle Anthony of Howard was highly impressive as a freshman, hauling in 40 passes for 535 yards and 6 touchdowns. I was a color commentator for their game against Morgan State and came away very impressed with Anthony's ability to make the contested catch. Another impressive freshman last year was North Carolina A&T's wide receiver Elijah Bell. The 6'2", 210-pound Bell was the leading receiver for the Aggies last year as he A&T led the squad in yards with 631. He also stepped up big time in the playoff game against Richmond, giving fans a preview of what's to come in 2017 and beyond. Defensively, this preseason all-conference team is led by one of the best defensive players in the entire FCS in linebacker Darius Leonard of South Carolina State. The senior backer finished last season with 124 tackles, 14.5 TFLs, and 3.5 sacks. Leonard's teammate and fellow backer Deshaun Taylor was equally as disruptive with 83 tackles, 10.5 TFLs, and 2 forced fumbles. In the secondary, Bethune-Cookman's Daquan Richardson picked off 4 passes, bringing one of them back for a touchdown, and Richardson and Morgan State's Carl Garnes are 2 terrific safeties in a conference known for its stellar defensive back play. The MEAC is also known for its excellent defensive line play. Morgan State's Jai Franklin has a bright future ahead of him. The 6'3", 280-pounder made a living in the opposing backfield with 13 TFLs and 4 sacks. Franklin also forced 2 fumbles and recovered 2 as well. And the good part is that he's healthy and ready to wreak havoc once again on opposing offenses. South Carolina State's safety Jason Baxter is coming off an excellent junior season that saw him pick off 2 passes and broke up another 3. Now, Baxter is a solid matchup safety that does a great job playing the run and can more than hold his own in one-on-one coverage. The special teams preseason all-conference performers has a familiar name on it as North Carolina A&T's Chris Garton, who was a 2016 preseason football game plan All-American. He finds himself on our list in 2017. The 5'7", 164 speedster finished last season averaging 23.2 yards per kickoff return and an impressive 12.3 yards per punt return, bringing one back to the house. Now it's time to take a look at the best positional units in the MEAC, and we'll start with the best quarterback unit. North Carolina A&T has 2 excellent QBs in Lamar Renard, who's coming off 14 touchdown passes to only 6 interceptions last year, and also completing 64% of his passes, and Khalil Carter, who's shown the ability to step in if need be and keep the offense on pace. The Aggies will probably lean more on their passing game this year now that the outstanding Tariq Cohen is off to the NFL, but Coach Broadway has comfort in knowing that he has 2 terrific signal callers to guide them along the way. We have a tie for the best group of running backs in the conference. North Carolina Central sophomore duo Ramon Simpson and Darrell McClain combined for over 1,100 yards and 12 touchdowns. Look for both to continue to lead the way as the Eagles break in a new quarterback this season. The Hampton Pirates also are strong in the backfield with Yaki Johnson and Eric Carter returning to the lineup. Johnson, a senior, ran for over 760 yards and finished 4th on the team in receiving, while Carter at 5'9", 210 pounds averaged 5 yards a carry last season and hit pay dirt 5 times as well. The best receiving core in the MEAC goes to the Bethune-Cookman Wildcats. Wide receivers Frank Brown, Joel Davis are big-time threats at every level of the field. They can work the short game and deep game equally as effective. Both receivers, along with tight end Jaquan Loomis, makes them extremely tough to match up against each and every week. Led by NFL draft prospect Brandon Parker and 3 other starters returning up front, the North Carolina A&T Aggies boast the best offensive line in the MEAC. Parker is the headliner, but center Dario Mack and guard Josh Maddox are extremely impressive blockers, especially in a running game. This is an Aggie front that paved the way for one of the most potent rushing attacks in the FCS. Norfolk State can create a ton of havoc up front defensively, which is why I like their defensive line as the best in the conference. Both Nigel Chavis and Chris Lee are excellent in collapsing the pocket and being disruptive. Defensive tackle Walker Brantley at 6'2", 345 finished 2016 with 20 tackles, 4.5 TFLs, and 1.5 sacks. Not bad for a defensive tackle that only registered 1 start last season. That tells you how deep and talented the Spartans are up front. South Carolina State gets the nod for the best linebacking core. Darius Leonard and Deshaun Taylor are preseason all-conference performers. They are disruptive on both ends of defense and play with great range and length. In the secondary, Morgan State stands out above the rest. Safety Carl Garnes is a guy that can match up versus wide receivers and tight ends, in addition to holding his own back deep. Eric Alvis is another talented defender with above-average instincts, and free safety Darius Johnson has very good ball skills and could be in store for a breakout 2017 season. My special teams pick stays the same as last year. North Carolina A&T not only has the best returnman in the conference in Chris Garton, but also the best punter in Steven Sawicki, who averaged an impressive 39.2 yards per punt, getting great hang time with each and every one. And finally, Savannah State draws the toughest schedule out of anyone in the MEAC, in my opinion. The Tigers have a tough September slate with 3 out of the 4 games on the road: App State, Montana, and also Bethune-Cookman. They also travel to Morgan State, Charleston Southern, Norfolk, and A&T. Head coach Eric Rayburn and his squad will definitely have their work cut out for them this season. We'll be back after this quick break.
For me, I think the biggest thing that football taught me was how to overcome adversity.
At some point in your life, you're going to have some tough times.
You have to have that next play mentality.
That cohesiveness and that working together, that's really something special that you can't get in a lot of other areas.
When you practice that and you live that in other phases of your life, it becomes second nature because all you know how to do is fight.
It's not an easy game. If it were easy, everyone would do it.
You start to appreciate the smaller contributions that people make. You don't just look at the big one because you knew it took 6 or 7 other guys who are unsung.
And you can't take shortcuts and be successful.
Doing what they do to make it possible for the guy getting the press clippings or whatever it might be.
In this game, whether it's as a coach or a player.
So I would certainly say that you definitely got a very quick lesson in how to overcome adversity playing football.
In the 2017 NFL Draft this past April, we saw 15 prospects from the FCS get their names called, and many more have signed free agent deals in the NFL and also in the CFL. And this is shaping up to be yet another strong class in the football championship subdivision. And here are a few guys that you want to keep an eye on for the 2018 NFL Draft. Looking at the prospects on this list, both Brandon Parker and Anthony Filial have been on the NFL radar for quite a while now, and Norfolk State's Chris Lee looks to be the next in line of Spartan NFL defenders, with linebacker Deion King being the most recent, who recently signed with the Cleveland Browns. Now, despite not having the overall team success, wide receiver Mason Rutherford of Delaware State is a talented wideout that shows really good toughness going over the middle of the field. We've talked about Darius Leonard throughout this entire video, and it's no surprise that he's highly thought of in scouting circles. The 6'3", 222-pound backer fits the mold of the new age nickel backer, or what he looks like and plays like. He has the sideline-to-sideline range of your classic weak side backer, the coverage ability of a combo safety, and the sure tackling of a Mike backer. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how he's able to continue to grow his game in 2017. We've now reached the part of the show where it's time to go more in depth on what we can expect within the conference in 2017. Look for head coach Kenny Carter's plan to start to take shape as his young Delaware State Hornets squad will take those progress steps this season. They'll try to shrink the ball game with their ground attack, which will hopefully give their defense time to get adjustments and get those key stops later on in ball games. Last season, the Hornets were plagued by inconsistency, which is expected to happen when you're playing a lot of younger players. Now, this season, they are experienced both with live game reps and within the scheme. That comfort and experience will show itself in the win column this season. Savannah State has 16 returning starters on a team that built a ton of confidence last year, getting more conference wins since joining the MEAC. Now, what stands in the way is the toughest schedule both in and out of conference this year. The good news is that the Tigers defense, because of what they have returning up front, should be able to fare better this year versus the run, which was the Achilles heel last season. Now, offensively, they'll have to have improvement along the line of scrimmage and start bullying people up front. And if they can find some consistency in the passing game, they'll match or improve upon that conference win total this season. The Hampton Pirates lost their 2 top receivers due to graduation and will be breaking in a new quarterback as well. Whomever they decide on as a replacement will have one of the best backfields in the conference to work with. You can expect to step back offensively because of the uncertainty, which is why head coach Colin Maynard will need a defense that returns 6 starters to step up and lead from the front while the offense finds their sea legs. Now, the defense wasn't bad last season and could be even better this year. Keep an eye on the back 7 as safety Brendan Cole and cornerback Robert Scott have the ability to take the ball away. Look for Hampton to be a squad that gets off to a slow start but gets hot toward the end of October and into November. The biggest question for South Carolina State will be if quarterback Mikael Moody can make huge strides at the position this year. He does have the benefit of a talented backfield led by Bishop Ford, who's a terror in space, and strong perimeter options in sophomore Demontrez Burrows, who led the team in receiving last season. The Bulldogs will be led by their defense and will be very tough to move the ball against in 2017. Can the offense take advantage of the increased opportunities with the football in their hands? We shall see, but we will definitely learn a lot about the Bulldogs in the first 2 weeks of the season as they open up on the road in Baton Rouge against Southern in the MEAC SWAC Challenge and come home to play host to Charleston Southern, who made the FCS playoffs last season. New head coach Mike London inherits a team that wasn't as bad as their 2-9 2016 record indicated. With his outstanding recruiting class and innovative offensive approach, with new offensive coordinator Brennan Marion calling the shots, the Bison will be able to move the football really well this season. All eyes will be focused on the defensive side of the ball as they'll look to make huge improvements over last year. If the spring is of any indication, they'll be greatly improved in that area. Defensive coordinator Vince Brown and co-defensive coordinator Chip West have a track record of success, along with Coach London, who has a great defensive background as well. The Bison are a year away from making some serious noise in the MEAC, but in 2017, we'll start to hear the Bison rumbling in the nation's capital. The Spartans of Norfolk State will be strong in 2017 along both sides of the line of scrimmage. Head coach Latrell Scott has done a great job of not only bringing in talent, but developing talent that's on the roster as well. Where you have some concerns is at the quarterback position. They'll have to replace Greg Hankerson, but as with a few other teams in this conference that are in the same situation, the Spartans have someone they can lean on until the new starter gets up to speed, and that's the big bruising running back Quintrell Chung. Look for the 6'1", 220-pound junior to get heavy usage early on in the season, and the Spartans will win a few games because of how strong they are within the front seven defensively, and if they can become balanced offensively, they'll be right in the thick of the conference race. Head coach Alex Wood is building something sustainable down there at Florida A&M. The Rattlers showed steady improvement over the last 2 seasons without the benefit of spring practices, and now that's no longer the case going into year 3. With a young but experienced team now able to participate in spring practice, it gives you a lot of reason for optimism entering the 2017 season. Look for the offense to be a little bit more dynamic this season, led by quarterback Ryan Stanley. Defensively, the linebacking core presents some concerns, as well as the secondary, losing key playmaking defensive back Jack Bryant. Now, we'll see how much spring has had an effect on the Rattlers in the first 3 weeks of the season as they face Texas Southern, Arkansas, and Tennessee State. The Morgan State Bears will surprise a lot of folks this season. They'll be vastly improved offensively and much more balanced due to JUCO transfer QB Elijah Staley. The 6'7", 230-pound quarterback will have the luxury of operating behind a very good offensive line and a strong stable of backs. The defense will be better as a result of the offense not having a lot of 3-and-outs. However, they do have to improve versus the run, and their talented secondary will have to make more plays on the ball if they're going to make some serious noise this season. Head coach Fred Farrier has quietly built a team that can compete in and out of the conference, and they'll have an early test in week 1 against Colonial Athletic Association member and nearby foe Towson, and games versus Albany and Rutgers, in my opinion, are winnable as well if they can avoid those self-inflicted wounds that plagued them last season. Reigning MEAC Coach of the Year Jerry Mack led his Eagles to the Celebration Bowl last year in an outright MEAC title in the process, making it 3 consecutive MEAC championships for the young head coach. And if they're going to repeat this season, it'll depend on an offensive line that has to gel and settling in on a quarterback that can provide the same level of consistency that they got from the superb Malcolm Bell. Now, what we do know about the 2017 Eagles is that they will be very tough defensively and will once again be one of the conference's best on that side of the ball. They will also be able to run the football very well because they have talented tailbacks. Now, their main questions are at quarterback and also up front, but Coach Mack is a brilliant offensive mind, so I don't expect a huge drop-off from last season, and the Eagles will once again be in the hunt for another MEAC championship. What makes North Carolina A&T so dangerous once again, even without superstar tailback Tariq Cohen, is that they get both quarterbacks back healthy and at 100%. So look for Lamar Renard to blossom this year, as he has a talented group of receivers to work with, along with a very talented tight end, and should be well protected behind the best offensive line in the MEAC. Defensively, despite losing 2 talented defensive linemen, the Aggies had really good depth in 2016 that'll be chomping at the bit to start this season. Now, who replaces Cohen will be what everyone will focus on. Can they remain productive in that capacity will be the biggest question they'll have to answer this season. Now, the schedule sets up nice for them to be right back in the thick of the MEAC Celebration Bowl race. If they can pull off another FBS upset this season against Charlotte on September 16th, they could be in position for an FCS playoff at-large bid as well. Head coach Terry Sims can't wait to get his Wildcats on the field this season because he has an experienced group and, most importantly, a healthy group. Now, the Wildcats were hit hard with injuries last season, which was a big reason why they finished 4-6. This year, they have depth in the backfield, on the perimeter, and also at linebacker. Quarterback Larry Brim also dealt with some injuries and was playing some really good ball last season, throwing 11 touchdowns to only 4 interceptions. With the only slight question being along the offensive line, the Wildcats look like the strongest team in the MEAC. Also, Uriel Hernandez gives them a solid kicking game as well. This team has the right mix to pull off an FBS upset this year, so keep an eye on September 16th in Boca Raton against Lane Kiffin's Florida Atlantic Owls. Be sure to follow us on all of our social media accounts. And if you want to check out our other FCS season previews, visit our website at footballgameplan.com/FCS Kickoff. Also on iTunes, subscribe to Football Game Plan Podcast, where you can find our FCS Opening Drive podcast.